Hi, this is Nanette Hosenfeld with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing from Monday, July 1st, 2019. Looking at fire potential impacts for the next few days, we will be seeing no significant fire weather impacts. We're looking at near normal temperatures and relative humidities today, along with light to moderate afternoon breezes. We will be seeing breezy, warmer, and drier conditions, especially across the southern areas by midweek. Over the past 24 hours, there's really not much precipitation. There is quite a bit of blue on the map, but that is very insignificant amount, so really not much in the way of precipitation across the Great Basin. We did have some lightning strikes reported across the area. As far as fire activity, things are continuing to slowly pick up across the Great Basin. As far as observed precipitation over the past 7 days, things are really much drier than they have been. We have not seen hardly any precipitation across the Great Basin in the 7-day period. And looking back at the 30-day period, you can see that apart from the higher elevations, the lower elevations have been quite dry across much of the area. ERCs are beginning to increase across the area. You can see pretty much outside of Utah, we are looking at ERCs in the 50th to 70th percentile. So those ERCs a little higher across southern Idaho, northwestern Nevada, a little higher further south, and then up in the central Idaho mountains. Continuing to look at the ERCs, you can look at the green trend lines there on the graphs to the right. You can see that they're doing their best to catch up to normal levels, and we're getting pretty close in some areas across the Great Basin with those ERCs almost to the normal levels. Live fuel moisture is quite high across the Great Basin. Almost all areas are reporting at or above normal live fuel moisture. We're looking at sagebrush fuel moisture samples here on this image. And you can see that those are pretty uniformly above normal across the Great Basin. 10-hour fuel moistures are quite low across Nevada. You can see that our driest 10-hour fuel moistures are across western Nevada, a little higher elsewhere in the Great Basin, but those 10-hour fine fuels are drying quite rapidly as we have seen warmer and drier conditions across the Great Basin in the past couple of weeks. Satellite this morning shows a low-pressure system just off the coast of the Pacific Northwest, and that will bring us some windier conditions later this week. For today, pretty benign weather is in the forecast. Quite dry across the Great Basin, pretty light winds expected, and as far as our significant fire potential, things are currently the driest across the southern part of the Great Basin, as you can see the brown area across southern Nevada. Looking at today in more detail, you can see pretty low relative humidities expected this afternoon, particularly across the southern and western parts of the Great Basin. Higher relative humidities are expected across the north and the east, where we do have some lingering moisture, and there is a potential for some showers and thunderstorms this afternoon across the Uinta Mountains of Utah. Moving into Tuesday, pretty similar conditions to what we're expecting today. Mostly dry air in place with that low off the Pacific Northwest moving inland a little closer to the Great Basin. You can see for Tuesday again, pretty low relative humidities across the central and southern parts of the Great Basin, higher relative humidities further north where there is better moisture. And as far as afternoon weather on Tuesday, really not much in the way of showers and thunderstorms at all. As we move into Wednesday, we see that low pressure system move into the Pacific Northwest, moving pretty slowly. With that slow advance of that weather system, we will continue to see drier conditions across the southern part of the Great Basin, a little higher relative humidities further north, and you can see on our significant fire potential map a few areas across the south drying out. On Wednesday, we are looking at pretty dry conditions across the far southern part of the Great Basin, and really not much in the way of showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon on Wednesday. Looking at 3-day precipitation accumulation across the Great Basin, little, if any, precipitation is expected. Anything we do see will likely be across a higher terrain. As we move into Thursday, we keep that drier air in place across the southern part of the Great Basin. Now, a little more moisture further north, so we will continue to see higher relative humidities across the northern part of the Great Basin, windier, drier conditions further south. As we move into Friday, a pretty stationary pattern continues with the drier air across the south and the higher humidities further north. Pretty stationary again on Saturday. We're in a very pretty static weather pattern where we see the drier conditions across the south. And this is pretty unusual for this time of year. Typically, by the end of the first week of July, we'd start to see monsoonal moisture at least beginning to make its way towards the southern part of the Great Basin. But that's not happening just because we're really in this unusual weather pattern. So you can see by Saturday on our significant fire potential map some of the additional areas in the Great Basin moving into that yellow category with the drier conditions. And then again on Sunday, some additional areas moving from green to yellow as we see continued dry conditions across the Great Basin. This is especially significant across the southern part of the area where we, again, would typically be seeing increasing moisture this time of year. So our 7-day total precipitation accumulation, pretty much the same as our 3-day precipitation accumulation, really quite dry over the next 7 days across the Great Basin. In the 8 to 14-day outlook, the Climate Prediction Center is calling for above normal temperatures across the northwestern part of the Great Basin. In that period, as far as precipitation, they are calling for below normal precipitation further south into the Great Basin, and that's really highlighting the fact that typically we would be seeing the monsoon occurring this time of year, but that's just not happening yet this year due to the unusual weather pattern that we are seeing. So that's it as far as our weather briefing. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Our information is on the screen, and you can also find us on Twitter. Thank you.